Hey guys, welcome back to another week of the Get to Know Me series. For being here today, That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with another great episode of Get to Know. And I'm telling you, this week's episode is the one we've been waiting for. It's a big one. This gentleman that's joining us today is known worldwide. He's had many different names and titles, including WWE Intercontinental Champion, WCW World Champion, NWA World Champion. He's also a WWE Hall of Famer. He is the king of the mountain. He is Jeff Jarrett. And here he is himself, all the way from Tennessee, Mr. Jeff Jarrett. Mr. Jarrett, thank you so much for joining us today.
Captain Mike, what a video you put together. Very impressive. You're just not the ordinary average, I don't know if there is one, captain of your division of the Salvation Army. But I appreciate that kind intro. And also you were listing some accolades. You failed to mention one. And that is advisory board member of the local division here in Middle Tennessee of the Salvation Army. So, though, that's how we connected, obviously. So, I appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to chatting, and I appreciate you having me a part of the series.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I want to thank Major Frizzle for introducing us and setting that up. And Jeff, before we get into the hard-hitting stuff, we had Matt Camp on a few weeks ago as our guest, and he wanted me to tell you or remind you, you need to thank him for winning 9 out of 7 fantasy football leagues.
Bless his heart. He's so delusional. He thinks he tries to get on my bandwagon, tries to jump on my coattails in fantasy football. But, Captain Mike, I believe I'm the only 15-time winner out of a 10-season career. So it is called fantasy football. So it's a fantasy. So you can dream it up. No, Matt's a great dude, and I'm glad to hear he was a part of the series.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been good. I've been able to connect with him for the last year, and so yeah, we are doing this series, kind of learning about how God's instilled passions in all of us, and there's many people that get the benefit of leaning into those passions and turning them into careers. And I know from being a follower literally my entire life, I hate to say that with the time frame, following your career, that you've had the opportunity to do that. So I got to ask the question to start off, why professional wrestling?
It's pretty simple to answer that one. It truly is a family business. In 1946, my grandmother was a single mother of 2. My father and my aunt. My grandfather went off to war. He came back to the States, but we'll say he didn't come home. So there my grandmother was with 2 young kids, trying to do her best to raise a family. And so she worked all kind of jobs she possibly could get. She was walking down the street in downtown Nashville outside of a shoe store. And there were 2 signs on the window. And I've told this story often, but it's kind of, you can call it fate. You can, just kind of, you can call it the hand of God guiding someone, but she literally read the 2 signs, and one said help wanted. And the other said wrestling tickets for sale. And so, she walked in and said, I'm here. And the gentleman said, what brought you by? And she said, the signs. And he goes, yeah, which one? And she said, actually, both. The help wanted sign was actually they needed help at the shoe store, but they also needed help, someone manning selling the wrestling tickets. So she took a side job selling shoes and also, being a part of selling the weekly wrestling tickets. She parlayed that into, she made it in a man's world. You could imagine, things aren't like they were, in 2022. It's obviously we live in a different world, but in the late 40s, a completely different culture in so many ways. And she took a job, what we would call as a bookkeeper. And then she worked her way up to what we would commonly refer to now as a CFO. She ran the back end of the wrestling promotion. And being that my father, a young tyke, young kid, he hang around the wrestling industry from her point of view, and spent a lot of time in box offices and the ticketing system, and just not the wrestling system, so to speak. So he promoted his first wrestling shows when he was in high school. Before we got a hardship license, so 15 years old, he's promoting shows in the summertime. So he got the bug, which was passed along from my grandmother. And so I'm a third generation promoter. So I like to say that my grandmother did everything but wrestle in the industry, promoted. She'll set up a wrestling ring back in the day. She did all the odd jobs. And then my dad followed in the footsteps. And then I'm one of 5 kids, and I'm the only one who followed in the family business. So feel very blessed as I sit here today, embarking on my hard to believe 36 years in the business. So just April 6th was 36 years. So that's truly hard for me to wrap my head around. But I'll be, I'm in the early stages of my 37th career. 30, easy for me to say, 37th year of my career.
Right. And you talk about your grandmother not needing to wrestle. From what I understand, Miss Teeny didn't need to, because she had the look that would cripple any guy. So
she had the grip that she'd get a hold of your ear, your cheek, and didn't let up.
That's right. And you talk about it being a family business, and where we are here in Eastern Pennsylvania, there's a lot of generational, kind of living, and kids are really following a lot of their parents. Same jobs, mom and pop stores, be it whatever, but some of them feel like maybe they're stuck in that. Did you ever feel obligated, like you had to follow because it was the family business?
No, I didn't. That's something that, once I made the decision, my father, in a lot of instances, we've had these conversations through the years, he made it much harder on me than he did his other folks that work for him. But I never felt the pressure to actually get in the business. Grew up playing sports, always loved, any kind of physicality or anything like that. But also was a huge fan. I'm the biggest wrestling fan that I know. Candidly, I watch all brands, all kinds of matches. I've watched an enormous amount of live wrestling, just growing up in the business and then touring the world. So it's something I got a passion for, but I never really felt the pressure get into it. I always really, really wanted to do it.
Well, and you talk about your love of sports. We know that you went to school playing basketball for, I believe, a year. You were in college.
Yeah, I played up through that. I played 1 year of college basketball, and the wrestling bug really took a hold of me in the spring of '86, finishing up my freshman year.
Gotcha. So as you kind of transitioned from, higher education and a year of that, and even you were super young, 19 and everything, going into professional wrestling, did you start to notice that there was parts from your educational academic life that helped you guide through there? Or was it, a lot of what you just learned on the go and life lessons that kind of helped you as you made that transition?
That the answer to that question is probably changed through the years. So on one side of my family, and we've already referenced my grandmother and my father, they were in the professional wrestling industry, and since the late 40s. On my mother's side of the family, they're all educators,
Gotcha.
principals, headmasters, teachers, administrators. That was so. If you could imagine, I really had 2 completely different sides of the family as far as that. So getting into the industry and that 1 year of college, I was fortunate enough, academic All-American, because my mother's side of the family always really, really stressed academics above anything else, way above sports, way above social activities. It was education, education, education.
Right.
So as I got into the industry, it was almost like two different worlds that I was leaving that education side. But as I've looked back over my life, you know, I'll say the skills that I learned, just the basic, you know, to run a business, you better have some good math skills. This day and age, you better be able to communicate through the English language, and that comes obviously from education and knowing how to craft emails and all the kind of day-to-day stuff. And then, you know, just sort of understanding the importance of social studies or history, all that. I've always applied that to the wrestling industry. I've been fascinated from, you know, before cable television, there were 22 handshake agreement territories, and so every territory was run differently, had a different business vision and everything that went with it. So as I got into the industry, I certainly used my education in multiple ways. Didn't really realize it at the time, but as I look back on it, I absolutely used my education.
Yeah, and you talked about your career and your third generation. You mentioned promoter. So, as a lot of people recognize you from your time in WWE, WWF in the '90s, and then WCW, and then you transitioned into being a promoter around 2002. And so, with that transition, can you kind of set up how you came to that point in your life where you realized your career needed to take a different path than maybe you anticipated it being?
You know, in-ring performer, my grandmother, again, was such a mentor to me. She had a saying, you can wrestle, but don't become a wrestler. And she meant that not in a derogatory manner, in that the shelf life of an in-ring performer is finite. You can't do it. Well, some folks can do it. Ask Ric Flair, but
Right.
there is such a finite shelf life to an in-ring career. She really wanted me to understand all facets of the business, and of course, my father being a promoter, and his wrestling career, in-ring career, was relatively short because he always liked the creative and the promotion side and the marketing side and the executive side much more than he did the in-ring career. So I always, in a lot of ways, when I look back, those are kind of the things that I look back on. I wasn't a real big fan of that in your 20s when you told you're going to come sit in this wrestling office as opposed to a gym or sleep or hang out with buddies or whatever it may be. But learning that side of the business. And then in 1993, when I got to go to, at that time, the WWF, and just see the production capabilities and that side of the business, that was kind of my, if you'll say, my college education and maybe into my post grad work in that when the time came and essentially WWE bought their competition, WCW, there was only one. And so my business brain, became activated, if you will. And I put on my promoter hat and I saw a huge opportunity in the marketplace. Without a number two, there's no such thing as a number one. So that kind of gave me the impetus to there's an opportunity here to start a promotion. And so that did open the door. And that's how we founded Total Nonstop Entertainment.
And TNA Wrestling, now Impact Wrestling, celebrating its 20th anniversary this month as we're recording this, and really a huge part of your legacy. And so as you kind of look back in your career through promoting and even in ring, a lot of times we get the opportunity to see you on TV and we get to see the lights and we get to see the applause or in your case, the booze many a times.
Come on, Captain. No,
yeah, you did a good job at it. I'll tell you that. But we just see all the sparkle and the shine. A lot of times we don't see what leads into it and the struggles there. We just think one day you want to be a wrestler, one day you want to be a promoter. You'll end up in the ring on TV, or you'll have a business on TV. Could you maybe give us some examples of some of the struggles that you hit along that path?
Oh, Mike, we don't have enough time. We truly don't. But at every step of the way, the business is, there's not many industries. You look in the entertainment business, there's 20 or 30 music labels, or
Right.
maybe even more than that. Now that the world has changed radically with streaming, but whether it's television or music, there's a lot of opportunities. With the wrestling industry in North America, there was a long time that to only, WWE or WCW, those are the only two real promotions where you could make a full-time living. That in and of itself creates a real sense of urgency, and it's a tough business to succeed and make a full-time living. So that's the simple struggles there. And then starting your own business, literally, we could talk between now and until tomorrow of just the any kind of small business, whether it's finance, whether it's expenses, whether it's red ink versus black ink, dealing with employer relationships. My personal situation is that wearing multiple hats was a real challenge of delegation and everything that goes with that, and running on budget. So there's challenges throughout life, no matter what it be, no matter how big or small you operate, or whether you run your own business or whether you're an employee. There's challenges in life across the board.
Right. And we hear stories, fans that love, like myself, that love all those backstories. We hear the stories of, living on canned tuna and living in your car and doing as the struggle on the way up. And so, you finally get to, through hard work, perseverance, in your case, you got to the big time, and you've got to live out your dream for now 7 years almost. And with that, how we even asked you to come on is because of celebrity. You mentioned it being part of the Salvation Army Advisory Board. So how does it then feel when you kind of, in your case, get to the other side and you've been established, and now you get to give back? You get to give a hand out and pull people up. What's been that experience for you in helping other people?
It's one of the things that, again, our specific industry, and I know that you can correlate this with banking, with a lawyer, with any trade in the world.
Right.
It can be, when you're scratching and clawing your way to the top, it's very ego driven. And self-admittedly, our business is right up there at the top of those. But when certain life situations happen, and you have a new perspective, you find situations where life happens on life terms, and it can be through relationships, it can be financial times, hard times, whatever valley that you may go through with life. That gives, it certainly gave me a new perspective on life. And then when I came out of some deep valleys and dark valleys in my life, I had a brand new perspective on gratitude, and the true essence of my life is really looking at a perspective of very grateful for the opportunities. I'm grateful for my career and my family, and the health of my family, and my health. And I don't say physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, across the board. So it gives me a new perspective, in that when I have an opportunity, and I became real close to Brother Purcell here in town, and others in the Nashville chapter, and I knew that it was in a lot of ways what I am called to do, and that's help. If I have the opportunity to help, jump on here and be a part of your series, or in Nashville, I'm a big part of. I'm the ambassador to the Red Kettle campaign, and that's as you know, well aware, it's a massive campaign to drive funds for the Salvation Army year round, and the work that you and other folks in the Salvation Army that do day in and day out, that getting people back on their feet when they truly need help. People experiencing homelessness, drug addiction, alcohol centers, giving kids just that opportunity for a summer camp, a backpack here or there, school supplies, food, Thanksgiving comes around, the opportunity to feed some people a great meal, just whatever it may be around the calendar out of the 12 months, me being able to be a very small part of giving back to the community, because I'm born and raised here in Nashville, and this community is my home. And so when I have the opportunity, I certainly do it. And if it's recording a commercial for the Red Kettle campaign, I'm all for it, because if I can create awareness, awareness eventually turns into funds, and funds obviously go back into the community to really do good for the community.
Yeah, and you know, you hear it all the time, but I've watched you're helping the Salvation Army in the Nashville area, so thank you, and to your whole family and the support that you have given to us. Well, Mr. Jarrett, I don't want to, I want to be respectful of your time. I want to hit on some fun stuff here too.
Here we
I
go,
know,
Mike.
I'm telling you
this before we started rolling. So
yeah, so I've seen you, like throughout your career, and you kind of got a little bit of a reputation. You like stringed instruments, and a lot of times those stringed instruments end up somehow over the heads of individuals, and some of them have actually been pretty well-known celebrities. So I was wondering, maybe you could share your favorite celebrity interaction, we'll call it.
Well, celebrity interaction, there's a who's who list, and in this day and age, it might not be so politically correct when we name my, for lack of a better word, look, it's in the world of sports entertainment. And
right.
It's no secret it's scripted, but the fabulous Moolah, a lady in her early 70s, was on the receiving end of a guitar shot. Gary Coleman of Different Strokes Claim to Fame, he's been on the receiving end. But, when you talk about celebrities, it's always, just a moment that you just is, for a wrestling fan, it's entertainment. But whether it's Ric Flair, Bill Goldberg, Kurt Angle, the list goes on and on. There's been several that have been on the receiving end of that guitar shot, Captain Mike. I have a feeling you could name a few as well. What's your favorite one?
My favorite one, well, Moolah was pretty great. Although I did see a Mighty Molly shot the other day rehashed. That was pretty wonderful. But my favorite one had to have been in the Erie Civic Center watching you on a Thunder taping. I know that you weren't quite in the right mind. Unfortunately, it was right after your concussion. But I was there with my dad watching, and I thought for sure that I was going to get a piece of shrapnel coming my way. So
who'd you crack in Erie? Because I remember that Thunder taping.
Yes, it might have been Benoit, if I remember correctly.
Okay, we got to look it up.
I'll have to look and see which one it was, but it was one of a couple. And so I've seen a couple live, and they were great. And you have been around, so I got the opportunity to see you a couple times in Erie, and you've been around the world. Whether certain co-hosts of yours want to admit it, as part of the Four Horsemen and the NWO and Bullet Club, you've literally traveled the world. And so, any favorite places to go and perform?
Oh, that's really tough. Home has always been special. Nashville. I used to wrestle here every Saturday night for 7 years when I broke in. As a kid, I went to the matches on Saturday night. So, there's no place like home. But, Madison Square Garden has to rank right up there at the very top. The Garden is kind of the granddaddy of them all. Also, in London, I've wrestled in Royal Albert Hall. It may not be an 80,000 seat arena, but it's a real cool vibe. Over in Japan, Yokohama Arena, right outside of Tokyo. As a young man, I had some matches over there, and of course Sumo Hall, and and then you take Mexico. Mexico has been a big part of my career, and in Mexico City, the old Bull Stadium was really, really cool. So, Mike, I could. It's hard. It's hard. I've wrestled in the old Maple Leaf Gardens up in Toronto. I was on the last show there. The old Boston Garden. So there's a few different arenas that hold a special place for me.
And a little bit of trivia: Royal Albert Hall was General William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army's last location, and he sold it out. So you can say you and William Booth have sold out the same arena.
So hold on. He preached there.
Yes. Absolutely.
at Royal Albert Hall.
Royal Albert Hall. That's
That was his last sermon.
the I'll fight speech, where women weep as they do now. I'll fight. While men go in and out of jail as they do now. I'll fight. I'll fight to the very end.
That is, I learned that's exactly why I came on today. I learned a little trivia. That's special. That's wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. I watched the old WWF show from there, and in my mind, I'm seeing the organ and seeing him preach up there, and yeah, it was pretty special place.
Fascinating.
So, well, I want to get you out of here, but we ask the same question for all our guests, and before you answer, the question is, what would Jeff Jarrett now say to 12-year-old Jeff Jarrett? But I want you to hold on that answer for 1 second, because a few weeks back on your podcast, something was shared that I got to say inspired me. You were very personal about your story, which, by the way, I would highly suggest people hearing your story and how, you don't talk about as much, but I feel the Lord really delivered you, and you could just see his hands around you. But you shared this poem from your dad, and if it's okay, I'd like to share this.
Sure.
From Rudyard Kipling. It says, "Don't quit when things go wrong, as they sometimes will. When the road you're drudging seems all uphill. When the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Success is a failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the cloud of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your hardest hit. It's when things seem worse that you must not quit." And so knowing, I know,
emotional hearing that.
I'm trying, my son's here, and trying not to tear up. He's downstairs, and hearing that, Jeff Jarrett now, to 12-year-old Jeff Jarrett, hanging that in his room, what would you say?
The funny chuckle side would be, hey, young Jeff, listen to those long-winded speeches from your father. Is one thing, because look, he's a storyteller as well, and he's long-winded, and sometimes I get long-winded on the podcast. But no, it's the a lot of times going through life, there are, you can call them kind of God moments, or you can call them, I don't believe in coincidences, only convergences. There come moments in our life that don't just happen. It's really, and a lot of times, I believe now, God trying to speak into our life, that he's always there. We're the ones that shut him out. We're the ones that just say, "Oh, that's a coincidence. That just happened." If there's something that I could tell 12-year-old Jeff, is things just don't happen. Right. That's a myth. Nothing happens by accident in the economy of God, good or bad. So the good things that happen, give thanks and praise. The bad things that happen, as crazy as it may sound, give thanks and praise, because I'm such a believer now in the fact that consider it all joy, and all things come to all things, not some things. It specifically says, no matter what translation, all things good to happen to those who love the Lord. And those kind of real, yes, it's scripture and everything that goes with that. But living day-to-day life and looking at things through things, there are no problems in life. There are opportunities to grow. And that's what I'd probably like to tell 12-year-old Jeff. You're not going to have any problem in life. Not a one. It's hard for people to wrap their head around, man, is Jeff crazy? He doesn't think there's problems in life. On this side of my life and where I'm at now, is there are no problems. There are incredible amount of opportunities to grow.
And I Totally agree with you, and I appreciate that insight. And 12-year-old me would not believe this moment, and through these opportunities and the doors God's opened. Well, Mr. Jarrett, I know that you've got a busy schedule, and I want to thank you for coming. Is there anything that you'd like to promote? I know your hands are in 7,000 different things right now.
Buddy, you have done enough by inviting me on here. All my social media is at Real Jeff Jarrett. Like you have it on your cool StreamYard presentation, and get to know Jeff Jarrett and at Real Jeff Jarrett. Hey, that's it. Hope everybody has a great day. I really do appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to a long relationship, no matter where the Army takes you.
Absolutely. I hope to connect with you in the future for sure. Well, and thanks for everybody that has tuned in, and make sure that you've comment in the comment section the answer to the secret question that we're going to put up to win that prize for this week. So thank you all on behalf of Mr. Jeff Jarrett, the Salvation Army. Thank you for tuning in to Get to Know.